There are more origins to SMG4 that have yet to be expressed. What if I told you that he is actually manipulating every character behind the scenes, and there are actually 2 different SMG4s, and when it all comes together, SMG0 may actually be trying to be a hero. Welcome to the SMG4 Guardian Theory, and just to let you know, this may be the darkest theory I've made on this channel yet. Make sure to like and subscribe. Enjoy the video. There are still origins to SMG4 that have been neglected to be told in the SMG4 Origins episode. In fact, it's SMG4 who is manipulating everyone and everything behind the scenes to make sure things run smoothly and for content. But I'm not talking about this SMG4. I'm talking about a completely different SMG4. Someone who, on the surface, may seem like the same character, but is probably the strongest god the series has ever seen. This SMG4 is forming every single story arc, was the cause of every death in the series, and it's even manipulating Zero. This SMG4 is the real-life SMG4. Now hold on, you all are probably screaming at your screens. Obviously the creators of the show are the ones who formed the story. It's their world and they can do whatever they want with it. But what if we took this from a canonical sense? What if this entire world is just one giant computer program that is forced to do whatever the real-life SMG4 desires? Now, this still sounds like a ludicrous statement, and where exactly is this coming from? Well, if we take a look back at the Genesis arc, we know that the real SMG4 is the one who is pulling the strings behind the scenes. He was the one who inserted every Guardian pod into each of their respective universes. When SMG1 and 2 traveled to the Super Mario 64 universe, the Guardian pod was removed and placed into the SM64 universe. This means that Guardian pods can only travel between each different universe when someone in the real world removes their USB and places it in that specific universe. However, this implies something very dark. At the end of SMG4 The Other Universe, it looked like Zero was the one who summoned the rest of his body. However, this wouldn't make sense. If Guardian pods can only travel between universes when someone in the real world moves them around manually, how would Zero be the one to summon a Guardian pod there? Unless this is what they want us to think. They want us to believe that Zero was the one to summon the rest of him there for entertainment purposes, to keep the audience engaged in the Genesis arc. We can see the real Zero Guardian pod at the end of War of the Fat Italians 2021 in the computer, which means that it had to be manually moved by the real SMG4 from the Sputnik universe to the SM64 universe because he was the one who moved the other USBs to the respective universes. Why would the real SMG4 do this? Well, for that, we'll need to turn over to the SMG4 episode, Mario in Real Life. This video was made back in 2014, and there was definitely no way that at this time the Genesis arc was planned. However, perhaps the Genesis arc used the Mario in Real Life episode as a base, so maybe we could use this episode for some clarifications of the lore. Now, I actually have 2 different theories regarding this. The first one is the real SMG4 theory, and the other is completely different. I'll start with the first theory. The first theory is that the real SMG4 is the one manipulating the ones behind the scenes. This is implied heavily by the Mario in Real Life episode, as in this episode, Mario hunts for his version of SMG4, but accidentally ends up in the real world and confronts the real version of SMG4. Most of the video was just funny jokes, and not much lore can be taken from here, and we can only take a few implications of it. When Mario confronts the real SMG4 about what happened to his SMG4, the real SMG4 completely brushes it off anytime it's brought up, and by the end of the episode, we don't really have an answer as to what happened to him. At first glance at the episode, it looks like the real SMG4 did not want any of these events to happen and freaked out. However, as the episode continues, it looks like maybe he wanted this event to happen after all. In certain moments of the episode, the real SMG4 seems to just be acting. At times, the emotions that were conveyed that he didn't want the cast there simply start vanishing.
Toad, what are you doing? Get out of there!
It starts looking like he wanted this event to happen, perhaps to make an episode out of it. In fact, if you look in the background of this episode, you can see him actually edit this exact video. This is a prime example of the real SMG4 manipulating the entire cast for entertainment purposes. And since he's the one who's editing the video, it's implied that he could be the one who edits all the videos, in a canonical sense that is. If you look at the series from this perspective, it really shifts the feel of the show. Destiny's death, Zero's backstory, everything in the show, all made for our own entertainment. This is why when SMG4's Guardian Pod landed, it made everyone in the Mushroom Kingdom lose all their IQ, for complete entertainment purposes. The animated SMG4 doesn't realize that this is happening, while the real SMG4 is manipulating the entire universe by making everyone completely dumb. Now it's time for my other theory. Zero may actually be a hero. We still have yet to get Zero's backstory, but based on the events of the Genesis arc, we may be able to come to a little bit of a satisfying conclusion. First of all, we know that Zero is a guardian from a universe where his avatar got destroyed. But if we take a look at this in the context of the real SMG4 manipulating everyone behind the scenes, wouldn't he be the one responsible for the death of Zero's avatar? What if Zero realized that the real SMG4 was the one who killed his avatar, and ever since, he's been trying to regain a peaceful life in a new universe? Zero doesn't plan on getting revenge on the real SMG4, but when the real SMG4 is trying to intervene in the universe, perhaps Zero will still go out of his way to mess with him. In SMG4 Into the Dark Web, we see SMG1 and 2's Guardian Pod spit out little chunks of binary, and one of them hits SMG3's Guardian Pod from entering the internet graveyard. It is implied for this to be Zero, not only because Zero was in the Guardian Pod at the time, but chunks of binary are typically around when Zero is around. SMG3 was originally meant to go to the internet graveyard. Perhaps this was the real SMG4's plan, by having two sets of different SMGs in the two dimensions. However, the real SMG4's plan was stopped by Zero, and SMG3 was sent to the Mushroom Kingdom instead. Eventually though, SMG3 ends up back in the internet graveyard like he was meant to. Don't forget, it's the real SMG4 who is doing the manipulating behind the scenes here, and, as we've established before, is the one making the story arcs. Which means that, like every other story arc, the YouTube arc would have also been made by the real SMG4. So this means that perhaps the entirety of the YouTube arc was made just to get SMG3 back to the internet graveyard. I also have a separate theory that there were more SMGs here in this scene that meets the eye. Notice how when Zero spits out chunks of binary at SMG3, two of them miss and only one of them hits his Guardian Pod. Now it's not like Zero could have missed and reshot the chunks of binary again, because he spits exactly 3 at the exact same time and doesn't shoot anymore despite no chunks of binary hitting SMG3 until the final one hits. This could imply that perhaps the other 2 chunks of binary may be leading off into someone else. Perhaps more SMGs, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll save that for another time. Thank you for watching, and check out my Godbox theory.